In 80 Days, adventurer and award-winning filmmaker Paul G. Roberts retraces the global footsteps of Phileas Fogg, hero of Jules Verne's most famous work.
So the early settlement and colonisation, we have archaeological evidence suggesting that Singapore was inhabited as early as the 3rd century AD. The indigenous people of Singapore were known as the Orang Laut, or sea people, who lived off fishing and trading in the neighbourhood regions. In the 14th century, Singapore was part of the Srivijayan Empire, again a maritime empire that controlled much of Southeast Asia. In the early 19th century, Singapore was a small fishing village with a population of only just a couple of 100,000. However, the island's strategic location on the southern tip of the Malay Peninsula made it an ideal trading port. And quick to notice that the British East India Company recognised its significance as a trading hub, and they established a settlement on the island as far back as 1819. So Stamford Raffles, the founder of modern Singapore, signed a treaty with the local Malay ruler and established a trading post on the island. And you'll notice that the famous Raffles Hotel is named in honour of Sir Stamford. So under British colonial rule, Singapore underwent rapid development. The British invested heavily in infrastructure, building roads and bridges and other public works. The city also became a centre for trade and commerce, attracting merchants and traders from all over the world. And the population of Singapore grew rapidly, with migrants from China, India, and other parts of Southeast Asia coming to work and trade. Singapore's growth, however, was interrupted by the outbreak of World War II in 1942. The good old Japanese invaded Singapore and occupied the island for 3 years. The Japanese occupation was brutal, with thousands of civilians killed and many more forced to work as slave labourers. After the war, Singapore returned to British colonial rule. However, the island's people began to demand greater political and economic autonomy. I guess they must have been sick of being masters from other people. And in 1959, Singapore held its first general election, and the People's Action Party, led by Lee Kuan Yew, won a landslide victory. Lee became the first Prime Minister of Singapore and began a program of rapid modernisation and economic development. In 1963, Singapore joined with Malaysia.
You see, the whole of my adult life, I had believed in Malaysian merger and the unity of these two territories. You know, as a people connected by geography, economics, and ties of kinship. If you don't have that natural zest, a desire to do things for other people, not just for yourself and your family, then you can't be a leader. You must have an interest in people.
But the union was short-lived. Tensions between the two countries led to Singapore's separation from Malaysia in 1965. The decision to leave Malaysia was a difficult one, but Lee believed it was necessary for Singapore's survival. The island was now a small, independent state, but it had no natural resources and only a population of 2 million people. Despite its difficult start as an independent nation, Singapore's leaders were determined to make the island a success. Lee Kuan Yew implemented a series of policies aimed at transforming Singapore into a modern, prosperous nation.
I have lasted because I learned very early on, never say something which I'm not going to do. I don't have to say it, that I'm not going to do it, but if I say I'm going to do it, I have to do it. And they know that, and they're comfortable with me.
The government invested heavily in education, in healthcare, infrastructure, and encouraged foreign investment to create jobs and stimulate growth. Singapore's economy grew rapidly, fueled by its strategic location, skilled workforce, and business-friendly policies. The government also promoted the culture of efficiency and hard work and encouraged Singaporeans to save and invest in their country's future. By the 1990s, Singapore had become one of the world's wealthiest nations, with a per capita income that surpassed many much larger, more populated nations.